We're learning more about the man suspected in the second assassination attempt on former President Trump in just a matter of months. Ryan Routh has fairly lengthy arrest records in North Carolina, and he previously lived in Greensboro. His arrest record in Guilford County spans the 1980s to 2010, with charges that range from writing bad checks all the way to possession of a weapon of mass destruction. Court documents alleging Routh had a, quote, binary explosive with a 10-inch detonation cord and a blasting cap. His neighbor of 2 decades telling Fox Digital that his family was, quote, weird. Kim Mungo saying, quote, he had a horse in the house, a whole live horse in the house, adding that she could see, quote, guns and stuff inside, but also saying, quote, he was a good guy. I do want to talk more about the investigation itself, where everything stands here. So let's bring in Dave Aronberg, the state attorney for Palm Beach County, Florida. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Great to be back with you, Josh. Thank you.
All right, so first off, I do have to ask you, as I've asked a lot of the guests here, you're in that area. We saw you speaking at the news conference after this happened on Sunday. Just kind of tell me what was going through your mind as you start to get word there in Palm Beach County that this has taken place, that there's been a second assassination attempt on the former president.
It was hard to believe, that it would not just happen, but that it would be happening in my backyard. So I was just finishing up practicing some golf on a lazy Sunday, and the weather was turning. I was in the clubhouse area. I was gulping water because it was so hot and humid. And I see on my phone, I got a message from a close friend with an article or a tweet about what allegedly had happened. And I looked into it, and the New York Post was reporting at the time that this was just a shootout between 2 people unrelated to Donald Trump. So I felt a little better about that because, the thought of another assassination attempt was also something that just could have just blown up and been such a huge deal here. And I thought, well, it's not super unusual to have an act of violence in that area. I mean, it's a decent area. We're in a safe community, but I didn't think that it would be what the rumors were until I called the sheriff. And the sheriff and I talked, and he said, no, this is something a lot more. And he told me the information of what was going on about the suspect in custody, about the car. And then a few minutes later, like 5 minutes later, I heard all that same information on TV. And I was shocked that the media had access to this information. So whoever your sources are, you've got good ones.
We definitely do. And I did want to ask you here, I know that you're not prosecuting this case specifically, but I did want to ask about the charges that Routh does face. And do you think that there are going to be more charges that are added in?
I do. I do think that there will be additional federal charges. Right now, the feds are charging the low-hanging fruit, the ex-felon in possession of a gun, the obliteration of the serial number. And when you charge that, those are pretty much slam dunks, because was he an ex-felon in possession of a gun? Of course. Was the serial number obliterated? Yeah, you don't need much intent. You don't need any intent, really, for those crimes. A little tougher would be to show that he intentionally pointed his gun at the Secret Service agent. That would be an aggravated assault with a deadly weapon against a federal law enforcement agent. And that would get you up to 20 years in prison. So I think that could be forthcoming. It depends on the facts. There's also the federal statute of threat against an ex-president. If his writings, if his social media posts show that he was threatening Donald Trump, then yes, he can get charged with that. That's up to 5 years. And then there's the others that people are asking about, the attempted murders. But that one is going to be tougher because he didn't fire a shot. Not that you need to for the crime of an attempted murder, but you need more than preparation. You need more than planning. And he was there waiting for 13 hours. You need to have a substantial step. And so that's where the investigation is going to go, to see what they can find. And I know that the governor of our state has said there needs to be more charges. That's why he's doing a separate state investigation. But I would caution that and say the feds have not stopped their investigation. They have not stopped their charges. This is just the beginning, not the end.
I want to touch a little bit more on something you just mentioned with attempted murder. We've heard a lot of folks out there who have said, how can he be charged with attempted murder when a gunshot wasn't fired? But as you said, that's still possible to do that.
Yes, but it's still hard because you've got to get in his head. You have to show his writings. Maybe he wrote what he was going to do. Maybe he told people what he was going to do, because otherwise you can imagine his defense, Josh. He could just say, yeah, I was hanging in the bushes. I want to shoot some seagulls, or I was going to go after the Secret Service or go after someone near him. He can invent so many reasons why he was standing there. And what's the proof that he was targeting the former president? Remember, Donald Trump was 300 to 500 yards away on a different hole. It was the Secret Service who was in front. And I know it's like common sense, obviously, why would the guy be there with this serious weapon unless he was trying to do the former president harm? But prosecutors can't go on hunches. Prosecutors have to prove cases with real evidence, and you've got to prove cases to a unanimous jury beyond a reasonable doubt. So I think that's one reason why the investigation is continuing. You haven't seen a more serious charge yet, but there could be more charges forthcoming. I think there will be.
I want to get your take on this as the state attorney there in Palm Beach County. When you have a suspect who is alive, as in this case here, versus a suspect in Butler, for instance, who is deceased, does that make it a little bit more difficult about what information you can release? Do you have to be a little bit more tight-lipped as that case is still ongoing and he still has to go through the court system?
Yes, and I give credit to the feds and our local sheriff, Rick Bradshaw, for doing 2 press conferences so far to keep the public informed. But it is tricky because you don't want to jeopardize your case. If you let information out into the public where it could later come back to haunt you with a Sixth Amendment violation, then you can lose the whole case. So you don't want to also say, here's evidence we found, and that evidence is later suppressed by the court. You could risk the whole case. You could jeopardize the defendant's Sixth Amendment right to a fair trial. So that's why you got to be tight-lipped. Plus, you don't want to scare off witnesses. You don't want to do something that would undermine the case, which is why they keep these things close to the vest.
I want to talk about his criminal history that exists. I was talking a little bit about it before I brought you in here, and there's one about, I believe it's possession of a weapon of mass destruction. What does all that say as you look over that criminal history of Mr. Routh?
It says this guy's got a screw loose. I mean, this guy thought he was on the level of Kim Jong-un and Elon Musk and Donald Trump and Joe Biden and all these world leaders, because he just obviously has some sort of mental disorder where like megalomania or something, where he's out there recruiting Afghans to fight in Ukraine and making broad pronouncements on the internet and on certain TV stations. It doesn't mean he's legally insane. If he tries an insanity defense, I think he's going to have trouble with it, because after he was caught, he hightailed it out of here, driving north on I-95, perhaps back to North Carolina. Why do you do that? Because you don't want to get caught. And you don't want to get caught because you knew what you did was wrong. You knew what you did was a crime. Well, the standard for an insanity defense is you don't know the difference between right and wrong. So when you go ahead and flee like he did, that's going to undermine his insanity defense. Now, as far as what kind of person he is, yeah, still, his elevator doesn't go to the top floor. Normal people don't commit crimes like this. But on the other hand, doesn't mean you're legally insane.
My last question for you here. I know that there's questions about whether Routh will remain in custody, remain jailed there. Do you think that he is going to remain jailed, or will he be granted bail, bond, and released possibly?
No way. I can't imagine that he's going to be released pending trial. This guy presents a real danger to the community. I mean, look at his past charges. I mean, he's an ex-felon with a real rap sheet, including one for possessing a weapon of mass destruction. I mean, come on. And now look what he allegedly did. So, no, I don't think he'll get out. He's going to be stuck in a jail cell until his trial. Now, it's always possible there could be a plea deal in the case, but as far as pretrial release, I can't imagine that happening here.
Do you think, and this is kind of speculation, but I do want to get your take as someone there in Palm Beach County, do you think that this will go all the way to trial? Is that a possibility, or is it likely that there is a plea deal that comes along somewhere along the way? Again, very early here in this whole situation, but just want to get your take.
It would be up to his defense lawyers to cop the deal because, the prosecutor is always going to say, here's a deal on the table. You take, 30 years or something huge. And it's up to the defense lawyers to be realistic with this guy and say, you either take this or you're going to die in prison. Because if he goes to trial, I think that he's likely to get a lot harsher sentence. I do think the evidence against him, at least for the gun crimes, are really solid. But I do think more charges are forthcoming. Now, if it's just these two charges at the end of the day, could they reach a deal? That'd be a little easier. But if he's facing the rest of his life in prison, he's going to have to come up and figure this out, whether he wants to be realistic with his expectations or does he want to just go for it and have a spectacle. Keep in mind, any trial in federal court will not be televised. So if he wants to use this as a platform for his political views, he's not going to get it.
All right. Dave Aronberg, as always, thank you so much for being here with us today and breaking it down. We appreciate it. I know you've been very busy over the past, 3 or so days. Anything else you want to add before I let you go?
It's been quite a week, Josh. Things can change on a dime. I think that's a lesson here. It was just a sleepy Sunday at the golf course and turned into no sleep for the next 3 days. It just happened all of a sudden. Just one last thing. Yeah, I went to that press conference, that first press conference, and people asked me why I wasn't wearing a tie then. Well, number one, I don't always wear a tie, but I wasn't wearing a tie then at the press conference because I found the only jacket I had around on the way back from the golf course and didn't stop at home. So that's what happens here. You don't have time to prepare for a lot of these things. You just have to go.
I'm not wearing a tie either, so I get it. Thank you, Dave, so much for being here with us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Josh.